So I'm Pauletta Hansel with the Urban Appalachian Community Coalition Story Gathering Project, and I am happy to be back for part 2 with the Gilberts, Bessie and Jerry Gilbert, and their lovely daughter, Kim Darpel. You may remember, if you were listening to the earlier part, that that Bessie and Jerry had just gotten married and they had $2 to their name back up in South Lebanon at that point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we're just going to pick up on your family life, and if you could just talk to me about what it was like for you both working and raising children here in the Cincinnati area, and just walk us through a little bit of your next few years.
Do you want to start?
It don't matter. When we went back, we had a little apartment over top of a 2-story house rented. We stayed there for probably about 3 months, 2 or 3 months. Then we rented a small house, not too far from where we was at, and we got in the remodeling business. The guy on the lumber store that owns the house, and he said, if you'll put paneling up and this and that, he said, I'll furnish it if you'll do it. Well, I've never done it before. But we ended up paneling the big part of the house and this, that, and the other. We stayed there probably about a year.
Yeah.
And then we bought a house when I was 20 years old. We bought a duplex.
Well, where was that?
It was in Morrow. I was about 7 or 8 miles away. And we worked on one side of it and rented it out. And then in 74, about that time, I guess it was, my mom and dad moved back from Tennessee up there for a while. Well, matter of fact, they got divorced, and mom was in one side of the duplex, and dad went back to Tennessee. And then we ended up selling the duplex, and we moved over to Mainville, Ohio, and rented a house for temporary. Then we moved back to South Lebanon. We moved about every 5 years, actually, buy a house and move.
Mm-hmm.
From the time we was 20 years old.
Yeah, we did.
And then there were about 5 years in South Lebanon again. Then we moved over towards Blanchester, Ohio, and we lived there about 5 years. And then we moved back and built a new house over at Lebanon, Ohio. We rented an apartment over in Monroe, Ohio, while we was building the house.
Wow.
Then we built a new house, and we stayed there about 12 years. And then we sold it. And about that time, we built one at Del Hollow. And then we had another house we bought in South Lebanon off of her sister's boy.
Got it.
And she had to have back surgery. And so eventually in about 2010 or 12, was it? 14, she moved down to Del Hollow permanent, and I went back and forth. I'd stay at the house we had at the fair and drive back and forth on the weekend. And until about 2000, what? About 7 years ago, whatever that was. It'd be, I sort of retired
15.
up there.
Mm-hmm.
About 15, I was sort of retired up there. And I went to Del Hollow, and I ended up working as much there as I did in Ohio.
Got
I
it.
was work construction, work for myself is what I did.
So yeah, so I'm going to back up just a little bit, because I have a feeling when you say that you build a house, you don't mean that you hired a construction company to build it. You built it yourself, didn't you?
Correct.
Yeah. So how did you get into that business? Were you already into it, or did you learn by building your own houses?
Well,
He learned by remodeling.
No, I remodeled and flipped 2 or 3, but I worked for Borden Chemical in the early 70s. And I got into the maintenance department and started doing electrical work in the plant and stuff. And then in 78, I guess it was, I went to work for Caterpillar dealership, and I was a maintenance person there and done all the electrical work and plumbing work and all that stuff in the facility. And in 84, they shut down. And I had a brother-in-law that was sort of doing construction work, and I worked for him a little bit. And he was doing jobs for the state. And really, most of the time, he was never there. And I've done all the work. And the guy from the state one day asked me, said, how would you like to do these on your own? I said, what I need to do, he said, get insurance. And It's the biggest thing you gotta do, get bonds and insurance. And so I went and did that. And from that day forward, I worked for myself, do remodeling, building a house or whatever.
Wow, that's great. So, Bessie, how about you? Were you just like twiddling your thumbs, eating bonbons and all that while he was doing all this work? That was sort of
No,
a joke. That was a joke because I can't imagine you just sitting around eating bonbons.
that's strange. That's strange that he has talked that way about all he did and didn't even say, my wife helped me.
Well, she asked me what I've done. She asked me what
That's
I've done.
right.
You gotta ask me what you've done.
Uh-oh, I hope I didn't cause your first fight as a married couple caused by this.
No, you didn't. No. But no, whatever he did, I did.
Mhm.
But I worked too.
Yeah.
We both worked.
No, she would nail plywood on or whatever when we built the house. But no, she worked at Andrew Jorgen's company in the food process, and then at Procter and Gamble for how many years?
17.
For 17 years, she was the manager of the cafeterias.
Yeah.
Then she worked at Madeira School District. It was over 3 schools for 10 years.
Wow.
So she stayed busy.
She
bet.
stayed busy. I stayed busy. Now, he never mentioned the girls, did he?
Not yet, but I'm sure you're getting to it. But I just want to, so, but before
That
we talk
wasn't her
about,
question. That wasn't her
Okay,
question.
I know.
before we talk about the girls, I just want to mention that all of this, Bessie, for you on a 2 years of high school education, you created this whole career for yourself and made a huge difference in other people's lives. And you too, Jared, but I didn't ask you, did you go to high school in South Lebanon?
No, I actually went to high school at Kings Mills, graduated over where Kings Island is, if you know where that's at.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
And you finished there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
In 1970, I graduated there.
Great. But all of this, you know, this for both of you, this life that you created for yourself, it's really wonderful. So I just want to stop and take a minute. I mean, I know the girls are important too, but I just want to stop and take a minute and just to appreciate that you were able to make such a big difference in your own lives, but also in other people's lives too. And you had time to have a couple of kids. So let's talk about that. When did the girls come along?
Kim came along in 1972. Holly came along, the other daughter, in 1978.
Yeah. So Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about what it was growing up with a family of people who had these hard workers whose family were from Eastern Kentucky?
Yeah, I would say growing up, and my sister Holly is going to join. I'm not sure what happened, but I think we would both agree we didn't appreciate kind of the things that you just celebrated right until now. And so understanding, looking back, like how hard they did work. Just is a lot. It means a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They made this life for you
to make you cry.
It's menopause. What can I say? You say that on video.
You make me feel so old.
No, I would just say it was a wonderful life. We certainly learned work ethic. We certainly learned to have things, you have to work for them. And that was instilled in us. But, you know, on the other side, we did a lot of fun things. We would take vacations to Gatlinburg, Tennessee a lot, right? Or we would go down home to Granny Till's and Poppy Mars's house. And it was a small house. So you can imagine with all the kids, their husbands, their kids, we would all pile in, you know, at Christmas time, Thanksgiving. And if we weren't at Granny Till's, we would go to Nashville, right, to be with our other papaw, so my dad's dad and his wife. So it was really, everything was around family. we were never dropped off, right, to stay somewhere on a Friday night so mom and dad could go out. And looking back, they probably should have done that. But they just value time with us all the time, because they worked so much when they were home. We really were focused on family time. And so I'll just say they both kind of like in this conversation talk about what they did. And, you know, mom might say, well, you didn't say I was helping you, but I would say they may not realize this, but they were great partners. Mom would go drive a nail or follow in dad's footsteps building the house. But to give dad credit, he would do laundry, he would cook dinners, he would help with homework, he would drive us where we needed to go, right? It was a great partnership that they always had. And so that also instilled in Holly and myself, finding partners, right?
Right.
As well. So they were both great examples of what to look for in a partner in life. So again, I don't think they probably sit back and take it all in like we do. But they did build a great life with not a lot to start with.
$2.
So
$2.
thank you, mom and dad. Sorry to get emotional.
$2. All that with $2, Bessie pointed out.
$2.
That's great. So I'll ask you this, Kim, but also Bessie and Jerry, because since, you know, I'm with the Urban Appalachian Coalition, I'm just curious, did you, Kim, starting with you, did you ever think of yourself as being, you know, an Appalachian? Did you use that word, or did you think about sort of having family from the mountains as being anything in particular in terms of your upbringing? Was that ever important to you?
You want to start with me?
I'm going to start with you.
Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yes, please.
I think all we knew was that as kids growing up, even into probably my 30s, we would go down home. And to us, that just meant going to grandma, you know, going to Granny Till's and being with family. But I think we knew it was a different life, right? We knew when we went to Granny Till's, we would play in the creeks and we would play outside and with the animals, and the foods we would eat, right, was different than when we were at home. And so sometimes we may not have liked all that, right? Because we liked McDonald's and we liked all these places, and we didn't get that when we went there. So that was different. And we knew the lifestyle was different. But again, I think it's back to that not appreciating it for what it really was, probably until like the last 10 or 15 years, when you have documentaries that come out like Hillbilly, right? And Hillbilly Elegy and all those things, right, wrong, or indifferent, you start to say, wow, it's a specialness about this place and the lifestyle that people have lived. So yeah, growing up, it was just what it was. And I think, again, as we get older, it's growing an appreciation for that lifestyle. I'm really trying to reconnect back to it through things like this.
Yeah. And Bessie and Jerry, how about you growing up? Did you ever think of yourself, you know, using words like Appalachian or hillbilly or mountain people? Did any of that was that part of how you saw yourself as younger people?
No, I didn't. I just thought it was the way life is. This is how it is.
Yeah.
You have to work for a living. But as I grew older, I was like, how am I going to make money? There was nothing there. So you had to move away. I thought I had to move away.
Yeah.
To make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't think a lot about it growing up.
Yeah. And how about you, Jerry?
We really had each other, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't know any different at the time.
Yeah.
So
Everybody around you was Appalachian, so you didn't think you were any different. You were all
everybody was alike.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way it was. But as you get older, you're like, I need to make some money.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that was my goal, to make money.
And you did.
And I did.
To do
Yeah.
what you wanted. And so, Jerry, you grew up in what I would call an urban Appalachian community, because what you just said was that,
Yeah.
where you grew up, lots of people around you were from Kentucky and Tennessee. Did you all feel any different than other people around
We was
you?
all about the same. I mean, we all wore pants with holes in them, which they want today, but we didn't. Back then, we didn't want the holes in our pants, but everybody was, was pretty much all the same. And everybody basically, there was no restaurant, so everybody basically ate at home. And if somebody had if you got a Pepsi, it was a delicacy. Remember, we get a Pepsi Cola on a Friday night. That's the only time we'd ever get one for a week, which a lot of people didn't have that, I guess, back then.
Yeah.
And we just lived in a small little house, and it was actually a 2-car garage turned into a little 2-bedroom house. And we was actually raising that all our life, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then Mom moved to Tennessee, where he worked at, moved to Tennessee in 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved there. And then they sort of more upscaled from what they lived up where we was at. They got a little brick home and this and the other, upscale. Of course, I think when Dad went, he got a pretty good pay raise because they put him in management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as far as growing up, all the kids was about the same. Everybody in the town was country people.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't know anybody in the town really much. I know one guy, the mailman, was raised in that town, and I think he was the only one that was actually come originally from that town.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And everybody else was from someplace else.
So you all heard Kim talk about what she feels like that she got from growing up with your values and your family. Did you have any thoughts about trying to instill any particular values in your kids based on your own growing up, or was it just a matter of living your life and hoping they were able to live theirs well too?
Well, I wanted and always told them, you can be anything you want to be. Anything that you want to be, you can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that today. I believe any kid that just sets their head, they can make a living, a good living today, get a good education, and you have to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I have my opinions about how people raise their kids today. They depend on the government, and that's just creating more and more, So I'm like, if you have a child, get them out there in the workforce. They have to work for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line.
Mom, can you talk a little bit about other things you've instilled in us as girls, like being independent and...
Oh yeah. I just said you can be anything you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Dad?
What do you remember?
Oh, I just remember you telling us to be independent and have a husband, but not to rely on him solely financially, right? To be financially independent.
You can be anything you want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I think also honesty was very much a tenet in our household.
Yeah.
From both Mom and Dad. while they didn't encourage bad behavior, it was always, worse if you lied about what you did. So I think honesty, working
And
hard,
discipline.
obviously, independence, and then God, right? We were, while we may not have gone to church every Sunday, it was instilled in us.
Yeah.
Faith.
Mhm.
And Kim thought at one time she was too big for a spanking.
That
Remember
sounds
that,
like a
Kim?
story.
Kim, rather not talk about that.
I didn't hear it, but sorry,
I
my
said-
ear is on.
Too
When you
big for a
thought she was
spanking.
Too big for a
Oh,
spanking.
yeah. So I guess you would call that humility and humbleness when you think you're getting above your raising.
And what about when Holly made her mistake with her dad?
I would say we were disciplined, but it was usually the bigger things Dad handled, and I always tell people it was done lovingly, right? Like there was the correction of why this has to happen, why I have to spank you, but we were never beaten or smacked around. It's just, and
Yeah.
I know everybody has their opinion on discipline, but that's how it was at our house, and I
But
think
it worked.
made us who we are today. Yeah.
Well, I am again aware of the time and not wanting to keep you too much longer, but I have one more question that I would like to ask Jerry and Bessie, and you guys can decide what order you want to answer it in. But sort of knowing how long ago you got married and how long you have been together as partners. What advice would you give to a young couple getting married and starting a family today?
They got to work together. That's the main thing.
It's 50-50.
Yeah.
If it's not 50-50, you won't make it. I firmly believe that. I do.
And we'll be married 50 year March 11th.
Wow, that's amazing.
So with that being said, still, they just have to work for a living. They have to work for it.
They got to be raised to work, really. But when you let them sit and do nothing and give them everything they want, most of them, that's why they want to keep doing. Of course, you got a few that'll pick up and take off, but not that many.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't hand to ours. We really didn't have it to hand at times,
We didn't, but we did. Anytime that anything went on, they had new dresses for whatever occasion.
They have what they needed.
Anything they needed. When they got old enough to drive, they both had cars. They had their insurance paid. So, I mean, they wasn't treated wrong nowhere. And anytime there was something at school going on, we made sure that they was there. So,
Yeah.
so
They knew they were supported.
You just
We
have to
did.
make it
We did.
happen. You have to make it happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you all so much. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had that you'd like to tell us now before we end?
No, I don't think so. Anything you want to say?
no, not that I know of.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Kim Darpel and Bessie Gilbert and Jerry Gilbert. I look forward to, or I appreciate having the chance to talk to you, and I look forward to other people getting a chance to hear this. And congratulations on almost hitting the 50-year mark. I'm sure by the time other people are seeing this, you will have. So I'm going to stop the recording now for the Urban Appalachian Community Coalition Story Gathering Project.